Hey guys, it's Amanda, your local Gen Z person talking about Instagram again. So in my last two Instagram related videos, I talked about the Instagram infographic industrial complex and the Make Instagram Casual Again movement, but today I'm going to be talking about finsta culture. Even saying the word finsta out loud feels somewhat dated to me at this point. I feel like its peak in the American teen lexicon was around 2017, so is this some huge culturally relevant thing that needs to be talked about right now? Not really, but I do feel like finsta culture has some cinematic parallels with the Make Instagram Casual Again movement, and a lot of people seem to enjoy that video, so let's discuss. But before I get into that, I would like to thank Native for sponsoring today's video. I really like Native deodorant because it smells great, dries fast, and doesn't feel sticky. Also, Native is vegan and free of parabens and sulfates. It's great if you're on the go, it's cruelty-free and aluminum-free, and has a huge selection of scents to choose from. I tried coconut and vanilla, which is my go-to scent, eucalyptus and mint if I'm trying to smell like I just got out of the shower, and lavender and rose if I'm trying to trick someone into falling in love with me. Native also offers free US shipping, which I love because I am the type of person who will spend more money instead of paying for shipping. I will die on that hill. 3 deodorants are normally $36, but if you use my link and code AmandaM, you'll get them for $24, and that's 33% off. Also with my code, you can get 20% off any body wash or toothpaste. So make sure you use my code AmandaM to get some goods from Native. Now back to finsta culture. First and foremost, what is a finsta? According to the Premier Index of Internet Slang Urban Dictionary, a finsta is a combination of the words fake and Instagram. Who would have thought? When people have a finsta, they post pictures they only want their closest friends to see instead of their regular Instagram Rinsta followers. Urban Dictionary says usually a girl has a finsta and boys aren't supposed to follow it. I mean, anyone can have a finsta, but maybe girls are more likely to have it. Finstas aren't supposed to be taken seriously, and it doesn't matter how many posts or followers you have. Finstas are mainly kept private, and they have funny or clever usernames. This definition is from 2015, but the earliest reference I found to finstas actually dates back to 2011. Dictionary.com says Finstagram is a portmanteau of fake and Instagram. It started appearing on social media in late July of 2011. At this time, a handful of Twitter users who posted photos in their tweets dubbed their posts Finstagrams to account for the fact that they were using the site as someone might use the then newish photo sharing app Instagram. While it's not certain, the word likely gained its current meaning sometime in 2013, and in the same year, Finstagram got its own entry in Yield Urban Dictionary. It began to get more attention in 2014 and onward before it attained mainstream media coverage in mid and late 2015. Since then, Finstagram's popularity has increased steadily. So let's talk about the rise of finstas, how and why they became mainstream. I feel like there are 2 reasons for it. One on the more practical side, caused by an update to the Instagram app, and the other caused by a shift in sentiment toward social media. Starting with the former, in February of 2016, Instagram added a feature to the app where you could seamlessly switch the Instagram account you were using. You still needed separate emails for separate accounts, but instead of completely logging out to access a second account, you could switch which profile you were using with the click of a button. So gone were the days of logging out and trying to remember your password for the umpteenth time. You could essentially be logged into 2 separate Instagram accounts at the same time. I think this update added a lot less friction for users who already operated on multiple accounts, whether for business or personal reasons, and made it a lot more convenient for people who previously had one account to create a second one. Obviously, this was probably great for Instagram because even if they weren't necessarily increasing the number of human users on the app, there were more accounts and people would probably spend more time on the app if they had more than one account to update. Now for the latter cause of the rise of the finsta. I think after the novelty of Instagram wore off, people started to take it more seriously as a way of presenting themselves, and everyone wanted to look perfect. It got to a point where Instagram wasn't about self-expression, but presentation. It became a highlight reel to show everyone's best and most beautiful moments, except other people's highlight reels always felt like their actual lives, and a lot of people became disillusioned with their own reality because it didn't resemble the precisely curated version of everyone else's life. I think this is why people started to find refuge in finstas. It was a chance to escape judgment and present a multifaceted version of oneself online. You could show the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Though a lot of people now associate finstas with being emotional dumping grounds, which I'll talk about later, I think they originally started as a way to be funny, silly, even a little inappropriate without the whole world, or at least your parents and employers, seeing. The most obvious benefit and original incentive to create a finsta was freedom. Finally being able to post whenever and whatever you wanted without fear of retaliation in the form of viewer likes and unfollows. I feel like I have a kind of interesting personal history of finstas / having multiple Instagram accounts. So I created my first Instagram account in 2012 when I was in 6th grade, which was actually elementary school for me. It's honestly kind of insane looking back, because knowing what I know now about the impact of social media, I would not want my 12-year-old self to be using Instagram, but oh well, here I am. I'm fine, I think. Anyway, I started my first Instagram account in 2012, and fun fact, I have not changed my username ever since. But I remember creating a second account in 2014 because I think this was around the time I discovered artsy Tumblr and I wanted to make an artsy Instagram account. For some reason, I wanted this to be a secret account, like I didn't want people I knew in real life to follow it. I think one reason is that I wanted to make a nice cohesive feed, which of course requires you to kind of post a lot, and at the time I think posting on Instagram more than once a day was heavily frowned upon. So I actually went back into this account to see what I posted because I thought that'd be fun to share with the class, a little show and tell time, exposing what I thought was artsy and cool in my early teen years. So the first post on this account was from December of 2014. It's this picture I took at Disney World, and I remember taking that photo and putting some Instagram filters on it and thinking like, this is peak high art, this deserves to go viral. Like, I was so proud of myself because it was my first artsy picture ever. As you can see, I went with this grayish, mutish aesthetic that was very popular in the American Apparel skater skirt 2014 Tumblr era, but then I shifted to this colorful art ho aesthetic, which also gained popularity on Tumblr around 2015. I distinctly remember when I posted on this account, what mattered most to me was the aesthetic of the pictures and a very cohesive color scheme. The captions were extremely low effort or non-existent, which is funny because I would spend at least half an hour trying to craft a witty caption for my main Instagram account at the same time. But I think I subconsciously shifted the purpose of this account around June of 2016. I got over being artsy and trying to conform my feed to a perfect, consistent aesthetic, mostly because I didn't have any aesthetic things to post, and I started using it as a kind of second camera roll in case I ever lost any of my pictures or ran out of space on my phone. And this is when it basically turned into a finsta. I posted screenshots of my favorite shows, pictures of celebrities I liked, and the time I made the cast of Hamilton on Sims. I posted imperfect selfies, memes, and complained about school a lot because at that time that was my whole life. Also, I promoted my YouTube videos on this account because I didn't want people from my school to know that I had a YouTube channel. And then in 2017, I started posting like emo stuff, and I started my emotional oversharing era and writing paragraph-long captions about the woes of being a senior in high school. I used my finsta a lot in my freshman year into sophomore year of college, but oddly enough, I kind of just stopped posting whenever the pandemic hit, and I haven't used it in a little over a year. So as someone who at one point was very deep into finsta culture, my account has over 800 posts, and now I've kind of been removed from it for a year. I feel like I have a clearer perspective on the implications of finsta culture, if you will. Even though finstas originally started to have a corner of carefreeness and fun on the internet, at this point in time, the crux of finsta culture is sharing intimate details about one's life and emotions. Oversharing and social media have kind of a weird relationship because sometimes it feels like there's not enough of it when everyone is trying to hide the flaws in themselves and their lives, but sometimes there's a bit too much of it where it's like, maybe you shouldn't be telling this to 100 of your closest Instagram friends, and maybe tell a therapist instead. I'm going to keep this video meta as hell. I'm going to have it resemble one of my own finsta posts. Very casual, little to no critical thought, just word vomit. So I'm gonna try to inject some spontaneity into this video and just go with the flow. If you've watched my videos before, you know I like to divide my thoughts on certain topics into 3 categories: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So anyway, the good. So as I said before, I feel like the main benefit of a finsta is freedom from judgment. I actually have a really close friend of mine who completely deleted his Rinsta account and only has his finsta now, which has like 50 followers, and like that's just what he posts on, and he said it gives him way less anxiety and makes him way more happier to like not worry about being judged or like being perceived by people he doesn't really know that well. I feel like another benefit of a finsta is that it can kind of just be an index of like really fun and silly moments that, I mean, like you could share them on your real Instagram account, but I honestly at one point just used my finsta as like a second camera roll, so that's also a benefit if you're someone like me who never has storage on your phone. And then I would say the third benefit of a finsta is that it can keep you updated and connected with people that you don't really get to see a lot in your daily life. This is kind of a strange one because it like brings me to the thought of like who you allow to follow your finsta, or whose finstas you follow. And it can be kind of such a weird mixed bag of people, from like internet friends that you've never ever met in real life to people in high school you haven't spoken to in like 3 years, even to like random people that you met one time and you just think they're cool, so you let them follow your finsta or whatever. Like sometimes you're basically venting your deepest, darkest feelings to people you essentially never talk to on a daily basis, which kind of brings me to the bad. I would say the bad part about finstas is that it does kind of resemble the bad parts about normal Instagrams, like having FOMO and seeking validation through likes and just general performance for a blob of followers that you're not really talking to anyone directly. You're still talking to like a mass of people. Even if that mass is like 10, 15, 50 people, it's still not having like a one-on-one conversation. It's still performance in some aspect. I still feel like finstas kind of can perpetuate the sense of FOMO, even if it is your close friends, because I don't know, you can like see them like hanging out with people and you're like, oh, why wasn't I invited, or why wasn't I there? Not that it's necessarily a direct slight against you or anything, but I feel like it still can like perpetuate that like fear of missing out, especially if it's people who you actually are friends with. Like, does that make sense? Isn't missing out worse if you're actually friends with the people and not like acquaintances with them? And then it might make you feel even more bad because you're like, oh, those are my real friends actually hanging out and I'm only seeing it on Finsta. Like, why wasn't I there? Why wasn't I invited? And it's like, you know, it has actually nothing to do with you, but I feel like it can still like perpetuate those thoughts. I also feel like with finstas, you're still to an extent seeking validation through likes, even though it might not be on such a large scale like how your Rinsta is received. We have like these rat brains that just like love to go and check our notifications to see if we get any likes or comments, no matter how much it is. Like, I feel like that's just like ingrained in the design of Instagram, and our brains are like supposed to react to that and get a hit of dopamine no matter how big or small. So I still feel like there's like the validation seeking aspect. This kind of brings me to the ugly, because on Finstas, even though they did kind of start as just like a fun place, they eventually morphed into these arenas of just like kind of oversharing, maybe a little bit of trauma dumping on like a selfie of you crying and then like a 2 paragraph long caption, talking about how sad you are or something like that. Obviously, it's good to get out your emotions and say how you're feeling, but I do feel like venting on a finsta kind of like makes you feel like you've processed this information or these feelings in a meaningful way, when you think about it, typing it out in a caption and kind of just like waiting to get a few likes here and there doesn't do much of anything for you, if it only stays in the finsta. I think sometimes when people type these things, luckily they might be able to get help because friends are reading it and they're like, okay, this is really not a great situation. It's kind of taking out of the sphere of the finsta and into the real world where you can hopefully talk it out with someone or a professional. But I feel like there can be certain situations where people feel like they're actually doing themselves good just by typing this out on Instagram. It makes you feel like you did something with that information when that might not be the case. Like, you might not have really processed that. You might have just typed a paragraph on Instagram and shared it with random strangers. I think another aspect of this oversharing thing too is that on Finstas, extreme language can be used very colloquially. Phrases like, I want to commit suicide or kill myself or something, kind of are used in a joking manner, which definitely those phrases are used like that in many places, in many corners of the internet, I would say, but particularly on Finstas, they can definitely be kind of a breeding ground for making this very serious language very casual. And I think it kind of like blurs the lines between an actual cry for help and melodrama, and that is not a really great gray area to be in. I think you also have to like ask yourself, if you're putting these kind of posts out, like, what does it say about your real life relationships and friendships if you feel like this is the only safe space that you can vent, like in anonymity, but not really. Because like the thing about a finsta, it's not completely anonymous as you might be in maybe like a Reddit forum or some other anonymous chat room, whatever. A finsta isn't completely anonymous, but it does take out the interpersonal element of sharing information and being vulnerable with someone, because it's through a screen rather than face to face or voice to voice. And I feel like that can definitely have an impact on our ability to like form tight bonds with people and be vulnerable if the only way we really know how is through the medium of a screen, which is kind of like scary, honestly. And I feel like I have been at points where I'm like, yeah, I would type these huge paragraphs on my Finsta about like how alone I felt and how I felt like I had no friends, when I probably had like at least like 10 or 20 friends like following my Finsta account. And I would never say that to anyone's face, but for some reason I could like type it out on the internet and people could know it that way, but I would never ever probably have the courage to say that to someone's face, which is like weird. So I feel like it can definitely like inhibit like friendships if you're just constantly finding out information about someone and about how they feel from an Instagram post, and it's just like, I don't know, it kind of just like gives like sub-tweety vibes. Those are kind of what I think are the worst parts about Finsta culture, is just like inhibiting the ability to be vulnerable face to face, and then also just like using such extreme language when it's not what you really mean, which I'm definitely guilty of that. But now I kind of want to talk about Finsta culture outside of Finstas, and I feel like the new Finsta in a way is kind of like the private story on Instagram. Oh wait, I think they have those on Snapchat too, but I do not use Snapchat, so I don't know. Now they have private stories on Instagram, which you can have your closest friends on. And also the whole concept of like the close friends list is really weird, because I feel like it's going down the same path of like Finsta territory, where it's like random strangers that you think are kind of cool, that you've maybe met once or actually have never met in person, and also like people you probably haven't talked to in years from your childhood and high school, and you can be sharing like deeply personal information with like these large swaths of people that you don't like actually interact with on a daily basis. I'm not saying it's like a bad thing. That's how my close friends stories look, but I don't know. I feel like there has to be some sort of like psychological reason for that. I don't understand. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the reason why we put random people or people that we're not even that close with on our close friends stories is because they can't like go to us in real life and ask us about our posts. Like they kind of feel, it feels like a little bit anonymous talking to people who we don't interact with on a daily basis in a way. So it kind of like takes off the pressure because it's like, oh, I've met them once, or I might not see them again, or we never have met in person, so I don't feel weird sharing this deeply personal information to them because in a way they're like faceless. At least that's my logic with that. But yeah, I kind of feel like close friend stories, at least for me, because I haven't really been using my finsta, have become like the new finsta. And I definitely don't even post on mine that much, but it's kind of interesting to see like sometimes when you realize you're on someone's close friend story and it's like, I haven't talked to you in years, but I'm on here, which is kind of funny. You know, not that I'm like, oh, remove me, I don't like you, but it's, I don't know, it's interesting. I honestly feel like I have decided at this point to use my close friend story more as just like a way of, one, expressing gratitude, and two, just like sharing funny moments. I definitely don't really try to do the whole, you know, emotional oversharing thing on there, and try to share things that I know that people who know me more closely, you know, have the context of me to understand. So like I'll put things about like classes or like things that I'm working on that like my close friends and people in my life would know that I'm working on, but not necessarily, you know, people who might follow me just because of my YouTube videos. I feel like looking at close friends stories and finstas and just having second accounts to post whatever you want, I don't know, I feel like it's just like a kind of byproduct of a larger desire to have like community in general, especially in kind of like this hyper individualistic like Western society we live in. I don't know, it's kind of, it's weird because it like feels like you have community because you're always connected to people, but at the same time it just makes people feel more alone than ever. Another thing that I've kind of started doing this past year, I guess, is that I actively kind of tried to not post when I was hanging out with someone on social media. Like in the sense that I remember whenever I would hang out with someone, at least pre-pandemic days, like there would always be like a boomerang involved or some post on some story. And I've kind of just like, which is like, you know, fine if you do that, like not to say that you shouldn't post with people. I feel like it's mostly just like asking myself, like, what is the point of posting this? What is the point of me posting a boomerang of me clinking glasses with someone? Like, what is the point of that? Like, genuinely think about it. Like, what's the point? Like, you're having fun right here. Like, why does anyone else need to know? That was a fun challenge for me, I discovered, to like just stop posting every single social interaction I had. So that was extremely rambly, but basically what I was trying to say is that at one point in my life, I wasn't very secure in the friendships and relationships I had, so I posted on social media when I was like hanging out with people to overcompensate for the fact that I felt like I didn't really have great friendships or relationships in my life. And I think I'm now at the point where I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to do that because I know that the people here are really great and awesome, and I don't need to really prove that to anyone. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next one, and have an amazing day. Goodbye.